From homeless to millionaire. The journey of a black man, inspired by Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Henry stood by the rain-smeared window of his penthouse, staring down at the city lights flickering like a million restless stars. Towering skyscrapers reached up to the dark sky, their glass facades gleaming despite the storm. The city was alive, loud, fast, and unforgiving. But inside Henry, it was dead silent. The money, the parties, the fancy cars. None of it filled the gnawing emptiness. The buzz faded, leaving a hollow pit that swallowed every laugh, every toast. Tonight was no different. Another high-class party. Another round of fake smiles and shallow chatter. Henry thought he was on top of the world. Instead, he felt smaller than ever. He pushed open the heavy door to his penthouse, the rain chasing him inside with a cold slap. Then, a sudden movement caught his eye. In the corner, shrouded in shadows, sat a man, a ragged figure wrapped in wet clothes, dirt smeared across H. "Jamal," the man said, voice calm yet sharp, like a blade sliding through thick air. Henry stepped back, heart pounding. "You're homeless," he said, trying to keep the disgust from his voice. Jamal smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was a challenge. "That's what you see now, but soon I'll be your boss." Henry's mind spun. Was this some kind of joke? A prank? This street ghost telling him he'd be in charge? Jamal stood up slowly, rain dripping from his coat. His eyes burned with something fierce, a story Henry couldn't ignore. "I came from the bottom, betrayed by people I trusted, left for dead more times than I can count. But I learned. I survived, and I'm damn good at what I do." Henry felt his chest tighten. An old hurt stirred beneath the luxury. A reminder of walls he'd built to keep pain out. Jamal wasn't just a vagrant stranger. He was a mirror. What kind of skills? Henry found himself asking, voice cracking a little. "Skills that mess with the game you think you own," Jamal said, stepping closer. "I've got a company. Top secret. Shape-shifting. Unstoppable. And you're in it, whether you like it or not." That hit Henry like a punch to the gut. The night became thicker, heavier. Was this a trap? A threat? Or the strange chance he didn't even know he was begging for? Jamal's story came out in jagged bursts. A past riddled with betrayal, darkness, survival. But also brilliance. Ideas that could shake the foundation of a city built on money and power. A project so wild, so impossible, it could change everything. Henry's hands trembled. He fought the surge of fear. The safe world he'd crafted began to crack. Was he ready to risk it all? To tear down the walls and step into the unknown? "Another thing," Jamal whispered, voice dropping low. "This company, it's big, but it's dangerous, way beyond what you faced. And it's coming for us both." Henry swallowed hard. The rain pounded against the window, loud and relentless. He looked Jamal in the eye. Trust, fear, ambition. It was all tangled up now, like the city's tangled streets below. The choice was there, comfort or chaos. The line between boss and employee blurred with every heartbeat. "What are we getting into?" Henry asked quietly. Jamal smiled again, a slow, knowing grin. "Something that will change our lives, but maybe break them too." Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like that really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Henry held Jamal's gaze for what felt like an eternity. The storm raged outside, but the moment felt frozen. What if we fail? He whispered, fear creeping into his thoughts. Failure isn't an option, Jamal replied, voice steady. Before Henry could respond, a loud crash echoed through the penthouse. A window shattered, glass flying in all directions. Cold air poured into the room, mixing with the warmth of their bodies. Panic shot through Henry. He stumbled backward, nearly tripping over his own feet. "Stay back!" he yelled, adrenaline kicking in. Jamal dropped low, eyes darting to the broken window. "I told you it's dangerous," he said, a fire igniting in his expression. "We're being watched." Henry's heart raced. His instincts screamed to run, but curiosity and fear held him in place. Shadows danced in the chaos as another figure slipped through the gap in the window. Clad in black, they moved like a shadow brought to life. "Get down!" Jamal shouted, lunging forward. A loud bang echoed. Gunfire. The sound rattled through the penthouse, leaving Henry paralyzed. He watched as Jamal ducked, firing back without hesitation. Shots rang out like thunder, each one tearing through the silk of the evening. "Who are they?" Henry barely got the words out as he pressed against the wall, heart pounding. "No time!" Jamal shouted, eyes fierce. "Get behind me!" As Henry scrambled, another figure emerged, this one moving toward Jamal with a violent purpose. It was a woman, face obscured, yet something struck Henry as familiar. She slid to a stop, glaring at Jamal. "Why did you come back?" she hissed, voice sharp enough to cut. Henry blinked, confusion swirling in his mind. "You know her? I thought I was done with you," she screamed, anger boiling over. "This was supposed to be my life!" Jamal's expression shifted from fierce to pained, like a mask slipping away. "Elena, I only wanted to protect you." "What a lie!" she spat, eyes blazing. "Now look where you are. You're still nothing but a gutter rat, and you want Henry to follow you into hell?" The words hit like a punch. Henry swallowed hard, realization dawning. The tension, the stakes, it was all deeper than he had imagined. The thrill of possibility twisted into something darker. Betrayal and trust danced dangerously close. Suddenly, the masked figure stepped between Jamal and Elena, aiming a weapon with a cold, calculating gaze. "You should have stayed gone, Jamal. No second chances," he said, voice dripping with malice. Henry felt the air thicken. "What is happening?" He managed to say the words feeling leaden on his tongue. Jamal shifted, crouching low, face set with determination. "This is not just about money or power, Henry. It's about survival." "Survival from what?" Henry asked, trembling now. But just as Jamal opened his mouth to spill the secret, there was another crash. The door flew open, and a team of officers poured in, guns drawn. "Drop your weapons!" they shouted. The room erupted into chaos. In the flurry of action, Henry's world exploded. Jamal's face froze in horror as the officers approached. Despite the screams and shouts, one thought pierced through the noise. Had Jamal truly been what he claimed? Or was his fall from grace something even darker? As the situation spiraled, Henry stood at the heart of a storm, caught between loyalty and instinct. Trust lay fractured at his feet. "Get out, now!" Jamal shouted suddenly. "You have to leave, Henry." Heart pounding, Henry felt the shriek of uncertainty clawing at him. What was the truth? What was the real danger? In that moment, he realized one thing. Everything he thought he knew had been shattered, just like the window. And as he turned to flee, he could only wonder, who was the real enemy? Henry's heart raced, the gravity of Jamal's words hanging heavy in the air. He could feel the pulse of the city, a constant, throbbing reminder of everything he had fought to build. Was he seriously considering this? The allure of chaos tugged at him, but fear gripped him just as tight. "What do you mean, dangerous?" Henry asked, voice barely above a whisper. Jamal leaned in closer, the faint smell of rain and sweat mingling as he spoke. "You're not the only one in this game, Henry. You've climbed high, but there are players above you. Players who won't hesitate to knock you back down." Henry looked away, a shiver running through him. He thought of the investors, the deals, the endless merry-go-round of people who only cared about what they could take. But his thoughts spiraled further into dark, chaotic territory. "What are you hiding, Jamal?" Just then, the distant sound of sirens wailed, growing louder by the second, cutting through the tension like glass. Jamal's eyes shifted, darting toward the sound, instinct kicking in. "They're coming for us. We need to move. Now!" "What? Why?" Panic crept into Henry's voice. He was still battling with the idea of trusting this man. Now there was urgency, a raw sense of dread. Jamal grabbed Henry's arm, pulling him toward the door. Before they could step out, a loud crash echoed down the hallway, shattering the illusion of safety. The door burst open. A group of men in suits surged into the penthouse, their faces taut with rage and purpose. "Henry!" one shouted, the voice slicing through the chaos. "You're in over your head!" Henry's gut twisted. These were the people he once called allies, now turned predators. What is happening? Jamal pushed Henry back, stepping to the front. "You don't know the truth, do you?" His voice trembled with resolve, but now it was tinged with something deeper. Fear? Regret? "They want your empire." "Stop!" one of the men barked, raising a gun. The flash of metal gleamed in the dim light, sending a wave of dread crashing over Henry. Time froze. The world narrowed to that single moment. The gun aimed at him, the simmering tension thick enough to cut. "You don't have to do this," Henry shouted, but his voice felt empty, a plea lost in a storm. Then, with a sudden flicker, the lights went out. Darkness enveloped the room. Screams echoed. Chaos erupted. The gunshot rang like thunder, deafening in the void. Henry flinched. Then a fire erupted from the corner. A flash of light revealed Jamal, standing firm, arm raised high, but not holding a weapon. "Get behind me," Jamal shouted, his eyes fierce. The fire danced among the shadows, illuminating faces twisted in disbelief. And there it was, a crack in the facade, a glimpse of something even darker lurking beneath. Henry's heart raced as he grasped the reality, hitting him like a freight train. Jamal wasn't just a homeless man with ambition. No, he was part of something much larger. Something interconnected with Henry's own life more than he ever realized. But just before Henry could piece it all together, the world spun with more violence. A loud crash came from another part of the penthouse, and suddenly the fire alarm wailed, sirens echoing down the corridors. Amid the blaring noise, Jamal leaned closer to Henry, urgency piercing through the chaos. "Trust me, if we don't get out now, we're both finished." The weight of betrayal sat heavy on Henry's chest. The room closed in around him, fear clawing at his insides. Who was Jamal really? The answer flickered just beyond reach. And in the midst of it all, that single question burned brighter than the flames consuming their world. What truth could turn a man like Jamal into a target? And who was truly after what Henry had built? Henry felt the heat of the flames lick at his skin, the smell of smoke burning his nostrils. Panic surged in him, pounding like a drum. The sirens blared outside, but inside, chaos already ruled. Jamal's words shook him further. Every instinct told him to run, but the truth lingered, heavy, suffocating. "What truth?" he demanded, his voice trembling. Jamal shot him a glance filled with urgency. "You'll find out soon enough," he replied sharply. Then a realization flashed across his face, something that struck him deeper than any gunshot. "Henry, you need to know." But before he could finish, Elena lunged forward. Something in her eyes blazed with rage and desperation. "Stop it, Jamal! You're dragging him down!" she shouted, her voice cracking. The fear radiating off her was almost palpable. "He doesn't know." That stopped Henry cold. "What don't I know?" he whispered, dread creeping into his chest. Ton, din, to the fay. His mind raced, trying to piece together what was unfolding. Then, out of nowhere, another loud crash resonated behind them. A window broke, and through the shards, a figure tumbled inside. A man in a crisp white suit, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead, staggered into the room. It was one of Henry's closest associates, Malcolm. Henry's heart sank. What was he doing here? "Henry!" Malcolm shouted, panic in his voice. "You're not safe! They're coming for you! Who's coming for us?" Henry spun, his mind a storm of confusion. Malcolm opened his mouth, pain etched on his face. But he was interrupted by a deafening blast of gunfire from outside. A shot rang out, too close. Henry felt the air ripple past him, a bullet grazing his arm. He gasped, blood soaking into his sleeve. "Get down!" Jamal yelled, pulling Henry behind him. Amidst the chaos and sharp noise, Henry's world spun. He clutched his arm, feeling the warmth seep through his fingers. "I don't understand," he shouted over the din, fear surging as an unexpected clarity washed over him. "What's happening?" "Trust him!" Malcolm yelled, his eyes darting between Elena and Jamal. "He was sent here to protect you from... His voice faltered, and the gravity of the unspoken words smothered the room. Then Henry's breath caught. "From what?" he demanded. Suddenly, Malcolm's eyes widened with horror. "You don't know the truth? You're not just a player anymore, Henry. You're the game." "What?" Henry felt the ground shift beneath him, It wasn't just chaos. This was betrayal. What do you mean? And that was when the room darkened further. Lights flickered, then dimmed to almost nothing. Shadows lurked, but before he could figure it out, Elena screamed. "No, you can't do this!" Then Jamal turned, something fierce in his eyes. Suddenly, looking more like a lion ready to fight than a man on the run. "You're more powerful than any of us thought, Henry. It was always about you." "What are you hiding from me?" Henry shouted, the pain in his arm now a dull throb against the confusion in his mind. Then Jamal's gaze softened, the rage replaced by something deeper. Painful affection? "I promise I'll explain everything. But first, we need to get out before they come for you." "Come for me?" Henry's world picked up speed, spiraling into madness. And then it hit him. What if Jamal wasn't just another hustler? What if he was right? An ill wind blew through the shattered window, chilling Henry to the core. The truth wrapped around him like a vice, harder to breathe. Just then, an explosion rocked the room, and everything erupted into chaos. Dust swirled, and the lights went out, plunging them into darkness. As the cries of his friends echoed around him, Henry felt his heart racing faster than ever before. In that suffocating silence, fear twisted in his gut. What game had he found himself in? And who was everyone really fighting for? Henry locked eyes with Jamal, that grin still lingering, full of secrets yet unspoken. The air was thick, tension crackling between them. Was this crazy man serious? Was he really offering an escape or a trap? "What kind of life-changing thing are we talking about?" Henry pressed. His heart raced. Panic flashed in his chest as he turned his gaze toward the sound. The glass door had exploded inward, shards flying everywhere. In rushed men, masked and hooded, bullets gleaming in their hands like hungry beasts. "Get down!" Henry shouted, adrenaline igniting every nerve. In an instant, he pushed Jamal behind the bar, ducking low as chaos erupted in his once tranquil space. He could barely make sense of the scene. The thud of heavy boots, muffled shouts mixing with the sound of rain. Henry's heart thumped so hard it felt like it might burst right out of his chest. What was this? A heist? "Where's the safe?" one masked man snarled, stalking toward them. His voice dripped with menace, each syllable hanging thick with dread. Henry braced himself against the bar, ready to fight. He glanced at Jamal, whose expression was unreadable, calm amidst the storm. "Stay quiet," Jamal whispered, eyes sharp like an eagle. "Let me handle this." But before Henry could respond, Jamal pushed past him, standing tall with an air of confidence. Henry's stomach dropped. Was he insane? "You don't want to do this," Jamal said, voice steady, almost mocking. He took a step forward, and the sound of a gun cocking echoed in the room. "Shut the hell up," the man barked, leveling the gun at Jamal. But Jamal didn't budge. Instead, he pointed at the man with an accusing finger. "You think it's just me in here? You don't know who you're dealing with." Henry's breath caught in his throat. What was Jamal saying? The man looked confused, unsure for just a moment. And that's when it happened. The masked man sneered, and then turned to his side. "You really think you can play games with us? You think you're special?" A younger man, hidden in the shadows, stepped into the light. His features were familiar, a face from a life Henry had tried to forget. "Henry," the figure called, voice brimming with derision. It was Marcus, his former best friend, betrayer, snatcher of dreams, the man who turned on him when he needed loyalty most. What the hell? Henry gasped, disbelief crashing over him like waves. You? Here? Marcus laughed, the sound dark and hollow. Surprised to see me? Here we are, old friends and all that. But let's skip the pleasantries. Hand over the files and we walk out. What files? Henry stammered, the connection between them suddenly terrifying. The shadows around them deepened, every second heavy with loss and betrayal. Jamal's presence shifted next to him. Not happening, he responded, voice firm. We're not about to be afraid of you or your little crew. Marcus's smile vanished. You don't know what you're up against, he hissed. Henry felt the walls closing in, breath hitching in his throat. The truth hit him like a tornado. Jamal hadn't just been a stranger. He was tied to this mess, and the danger was alive in every corner. This was a nightmare unfolding before his eyes, a deadly game of trust and power that had turned upside down in the blink of an eye. Would they survive this? Would anything remain? Prepare for the chaos, Marcus taunted. You'll find out exactly what you're made of. Silence fell, thick as fog. The stakes were higher than ever, and fear dripped like rain. Henry clenched his fists, heart pounding. What was he in for, really? Henry's breath hitched as he waited for Jamal's answer. The room felt electric, charged with expectations. He held on to a thread of hope, but it was fraying under the weight of uncertainty. What did he really know about this man? The shadows stretched long, deepening the mystery, pushing him to the edge. But then, from the depths of that heavy silence, came a shattering bang. The door to the penthouse flew open. Two men stormed in, faces masked, weapons drawn. The glint of metal caught Henry off guard. His heart raced. The air turned thick, sharp as glass. Get down! One of the intruders barked, echoing through the luxury of the penthouse. Instinct kicked in, and Henry ducked behind the sleek counter, adrenaline surging. Jamal stood unflinching, his fists clenched. The storm outside raged on, but inside, chaos had erupted. Stay where you are, the second man shouted, aiming his gun at Jamal. Henry's pulse pounded in his ears. Who were these guys? What did they want? In the chaos, something broke free within Jamal. You don't know what you're doing, he yelled, eyes blazing. The confidence from moments ago had transformed into raw defiance. You're messing with forces you can't control. Shut it! The attacker moved closer, voice dripping with menace. Suddenly, the tension twisted again. You think I'm scared of you? Jamal spit, stepping forward. You should be scared of me. Henry's mind raced. Were they after Jamal? Or him? The crowd outside the window seemed oblivious to the pandemonium unfolding. Then it hit Henry, a realization that struck harder than the gunfire. The news stories he dismissed, corporate sabotage, rivalries, crime syndicates, he'd brushed off as distant. Yet here they were, crashing through his life like waves against rocks. Jamal wasn't just some homeless guy. He was a player on a game board Henry hadn't even known existed. A deafening shot exploded, echoing against the walls. The room froze. The second intruder staggered back, clutching his shoulder. A look of shock etched across his face. Get the boss, the first attacker yelled, frustration boiling over. Boss, Henry whispered, confusion gripping him. In that instant, Jamal lunged. A blur of movement, fists flying, graceful, determined. The intruder trampled, but Henry barely registered it. What was happening? This wasn't a game, not a mere business deal. Jamal's world was dark and dangerous, full of secrets sharp enough to cut skin. Henry's heart raced as the pieces fell into place. Who was he really working with? Just then, Henry spotted a flash, a sleek tablet slipping from Jamal's coat as he battled the intruder. The device cracked against the floor. It flickered to life, displaying a series of documents. Plans, names, dates. Jamal's eyes widened, panic breaking through his fierce demeanor. "No, not that!" he shouted. The attackers were stunned, the moment hanging in the air. Henry moved instinctively, grabbing the tablet. He saw names he recognized, business associates, politicians, people he'd never imagined tied to a darker web. "Drop it!" the first attacker growled, now on the defensive. But Henry clutched it tighter, each name spilling into his mind like ink on a page. "Let them have it, Henry. It's not worth it," Jamal yelled, desperation lacing his voice. But it was too late. The gravity of what lay before him pulled him in deeper. It all crashed in on him. Trust, betrayal, ambition. He was no longer a successful entrepreneur. He was a pawn, caught in a game far too big, too dangerous. "Who are you, Jamal?" he asked, voice steady despite the thundering chaos. Just then, another gunshot rang out, this time silencing everything. A scream erupted from outside, a sound that echoed through Henry's chest. He didn't know who to trust anymore. The lines between friend and foe blurred, and the storm outside mirrored the tempest inside him. What was about to unravel was bigger than either of them, far bigger than Henry had ever dared to imagine. "What are we getting into?" Henry asked quietly. Jamal's smile widened, but the shadows in his eyes deepened. They stood in silence, the sound of the rain drumroll filling the empty space between them. Suddenly, the heavy door swung open. A woman rushed in, her breath fogging the air. It was Mara, Henry's former business partner, his right hand, his confidant. She looked disheveled, panic etched across her face. Henry's pulse quickened. He had no idea she would come here tonight. "Henry!" she gasped, her chest heaving from the cold and the urgency. "You need to listen. There's something I have to tell you." Henry frowned, the night suddenly shifting like a storm. "Mara, what's going on?" Before she could reply, Jamal stepped forward, eyes narrow and resolute. "This is not the time. You're not ready for this." Mara's gaze darted between the two men, confusion swirling in her stormy eyes. "What do you mean, not ready? Henry, we are in deep trouble because of you." "The merger?" "Shut it," Henry barked, feeling a heat rise in him. How could she bring this up now, with Jamal here? But Mara pressed on, shaking her head. "You don't know what you're involved in. That company, it's not what it seems. The investors are hiding something. I've seen papers, emails." "What papers?" Jamal interrupted, voice low but sharp as glass. Her eyes flared defiantly. "They're planning a hostile takedown. Your whole empire, Henry. They want you out. This secret company isn't what you think," Jamal snapped, cutting through Mara's panic. Henry felt the space between them pulse. Everything felt thick. "What are you saying? Who's behind this?" With a deep breath, Jamal's ferocity softened, revealing something painful. "I knew your investors, Henry. I used to work for them." The air jolted like a car brake screeching. "What?" Henry whispered. Why didn't you tell me?" "And ruin my shot?" Jamal shot back, anger flaring. "Why would I? This is your chance. You think you're safe because you're on top, but you're not. They're playing the long game." Mara's eyes widened, realization settling in. "You were part of this all along? Is that why you showed up? To drag him into your mess?" Jamal's gaze turned steely. "Not a mess, a revolution, but I can't do it alone." "Stop!" Henry shouted, hands shaking. "What is the truth? Who are you really?" Before Jamal could respond, there was a loud crash from the window, the glass shattering under the force of something hitting hard. A dark figure lunged inside, draped in rain-soaked fabric, clutching a bag that glinted under the dim light. A weapon of sorts. "Don't move!" the stranger yelled, eyes wide and frantic. All at once, the laughter and music of the earlier party felt worlds away. The pounding rain turned to thunder, jolting through the room like an echo of the storm brewing inside Henry. Jamal's calm facade splintered. "Run!" he shouted, pushing Henry and Mara toward the back of the penthouse. "We need to get out now!" And in that flash of chaos, the stranger raised the weapon. A sick twist of dread curled in Henry's stomach as everything began to spiral out of control. He was trapped between a past he didn't understand and a dangerous future tumbling into darkness. What lay ahead? Betrayal? Truth? Or something worse? He didn't know, but he had to choose. Now. Henry stood frozen, heart racing, as the masked intruder raised his weapon. The cold metal caught the glimmer of a lone light in the chaos. The moment felt as electric as the storm outside. And Henry could scarcely breathe. "Don't move!" the intruder shouted again, voice taut with urgency, eyes darting like a cornered animal. Jamal pushed forward, chest heaving. "You don't understand. We're not your enemy." But before he could finish, the intruder suddenly hesitated. In that split second, time warped. With a swift motion, he yanked off his mask. Henry gasped, recognition smashing into him like a brick. It was Chris, an old friend from college, someone they all thought disappeared into the underbelly of the city. "Chris?" Henry stumbled back, shock slamming into him. "What are you doing?" "Tell him to drop it," Chris barked, sweat trickling down his temple. "This is bigger than you think, Henry. You need to listen." Jamal moved closer, hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "I can explain." "No!" Chris interrupted, his eyes wild, fear tugging at the edges of his resolve. "I'm not here to hurt you, but I need that tablet. You don't know what's at stake." Mara's breath caught, confusion swirling in the shadows. "What's going on?" she shouted. "What do you mean?" For a moment, it felt like the storm outside had seeped in. Flashes of lightning illuminating faces twisted with shock. "Henry, they're coming for all of us." "I thought I was helping, but the deeper I went—" Chris started shaking his head. "No one is who they say they are." That twisted at Henry's insides, a raw dread sparking in him. "What do you mean?" Suddenly, a loud thud reverberated through the room. Everyone turned as a figure barged in from the kitchen, barreling past the chaos like a freight train. It was David, the tech genius behind many of Henry's biggest deals, the man they all respected, trusted. Or so Henry thought. David's gaze locked on Henry's, and panic flashed across his features. "Henry, they're not just after the company. They're out to erase you." Before Henry could respond, David pulled out a small device, flicking it on with a practiced flick of his wrist. An eerie blue light filled the room, rapidly projecting images onto the far wall. Faces, names, deals. A web of interconnected dots scrawled like a spider's nest across the screen. Henry's heart sank. His name appeared there, highlighted like a ticking bomb. David moved closer, urgency flaring in his eyes. "You've been set up. You're the target by design." "Why?" Henry felt the walls close in. Who did this? But then it escalated. The lights flickered again, shadows darting. More figures rushed through the door, wearing dark suits, identical expressions of intent. "Shut it down, David!" Chris shouted, eyes darting. "They can track that!" But David was already pushing a series of buttons. "I can't waste time. The board has been compromised. Those in charge, they're not on the list anymore. They'll do anything to cover this up." As the images shifted, one face loomed larger. A name that was supposed to be behind the scenes. A name Henry had trusted implicitly. "Allison?" Henry's voice broke, disbelief spilling like pouring rain. "Exactly," David said, cheeks taut with fear. "Allison's been working you this whole time. She set you up as the fall guy." Like steel hitting his gut, the truth gripped Henry. His own mentor, the one he'd leaned on for guidance, was the very architect of this nightmare. Chris's eyes met Henry's, desperation sparking through the confusion. "We need to get out of here now. They'll come for the proof. This whole thing is about to implode." Suddenly, the world around them shifted again. The sounds of sirens grew closer, drowning out words, echoing a warning. Henry stumbled back, grappling with the betrayal shattering his reality. "Who can you trust if she's the enemy?" he murmured, feeling everything he built teetering on the edge of collapse. The weight of uncertainty slammed against him. Would he lose everything? Then the door burst open once more, and as the chaos unfolded, another figure stepped in. This time, it was Allison herself, her expression a mask of calculated calm. "I knew you'd come, Henry," she said, almost too smoothly, eyes gleaming with an unsettling light. And then everything spiraled again. The tension snapped like a taut string ready to break, and Henry stood there in the storm, reeling, wondering who he could trust, as the future loomed large and foreboding around them. Henry stood there, dumbfounded, as Allison stepped into the room, her calm demeanor sharp against the chaos around them. "I knew you'd come, Henry," she said, her voice gravelly with confidence. It was unsettling, like a predator approaching its prey. His heart pounded. "What do you mean?" he stammered, eyes darting between her and the group, desperate for answers. Allison's gaze flickered over the faces assembled there, her demeanor chilling as she smiled just a touch too wide. "This is all a game, Henry. You were a pawn in my plan all along." "No," he gasped, trying to process what she was saying. "I'm not a pawn. I built this. I'm in control." "Control?" Her laughter was cold and cutting. "Your investors, your friends, they've all been lying to you. Your empire is built on a foundation of betrayal. A pit formed in Henry's stomach. The walls he built around himself crumbled. "What are you talking about?" But before she could elaborate, a loud crash erupted from the back of the penthouse. The door flew off its hinges, and a cadre of armed men surged inside. Faces hidden under masks. They moved with purpose, eyes locked on the group, like wolves spotting prey. "Get down!" Chris shouted, instinctively pushing Mara behind him as chaos erupted. Henry ducked instinctively, heart thundering, hands gripping the nearest furniture as Allison remained unnaturally still, a smirk tugging at her lips. "Go on, Henry. Show them your power." "Power?" he echoed, incredulous. Just then, one of the masked men lunged for him. "Henry!" Jamal shouted, but the intruder was too fast. A swift motion, and suddenly, Henry felt something thick and cold slamming into his ribs. Air knocked out of him. He crumpled to the floor, gasping for breath. The pain was searing, and as panic washed over him, he caught a glimpse of the tablet, now lying forgotten on the floor, its screen flickering unintelligibly. "Leave him!" Jamal yelled, throwing himself at the attackers in a valiant, reckless attempt to protect Henry. The masked figures pushed against him, confusion rising. The second assailant yelled, "This isn't the one! We're looking for the woman in charge!" A dawning realization washed over Henry. A name flickered in his mind. Allison. "No!" he shouted hoarsely, a desperate urge to warn them. "It's her!" But it was too late. They couldn't hear him. In a violent rush, the masked marionette turned to Allison and lunged, but with unexpected composure, she simply stepped aside. "Do your worst," she said flatly, a disquieting calm washing over her. Betrayal wrapped in something darker. Henry's heart sank further as he realized the truth. They weren't after him. They were after her. "Allison, you set this up," he managed, struggling to catch his breath. She merely smiled, the light catching the sharp angles of her face. "You were all too easy to manipulate, Henry. I needed a distraction while I secured my real prize." "Prize?" Chris echoed, voice shaky but filled with urgency. "What's the prize?" Suddenly, something shifted. The floorboards creaked ominously, a low rumble echoing beneath them. And then, floor panels jolted open, revealing a hidden bunker guarded by ferocious steel doors. Lights flickered, casting a harsh glow on the group as Allison began to step backward, a fierce glint sparking in her eye. "Do you really want to know how deep this goes? Then come find me." Everything unraveled in an instant. The realization crashed like a wave. Allison was no victim. She was the puppeteer orchestrating this entire disaster. As the armed men surged forward, something shot through Henry like icy fire. The stakes had shifted violently. The threads of loyalty and trust he thought held firm were fraying, unraveling into an abyss he couldn't comprehend. And just as the first wave of armed men rushed at them, the bunker below creaked open wider, inviting darkness. Nobody else seemed to know. Nobody else understood what lay beneath. Henry's heart thundered wildly. He felt the drop of dread. Was anyone ever truly on his side? In the chaos, as bodies collided and shouts filled the room, he caught the last glimpse of Allison's smirk, and whispered words lingered heavily in the air. "Come find me." And in that moment, the city outside rumbled, but nothing compared to the storm brewing in Henry's chest. What new path awaited him, and could he survive this hell? Henry lay on the ground, the pain in his side a blazing reminder of his reality. The faces around him warped in a flickering light, a chaotic dance of shadows mixed with fear and betrayal. As Allison's grin faded, replaced by cold resolve, Henry could feel the heavy weight of her control hang ominously over the room. Chaos erupted as the armed men closed in, the air thick with tension. Jamal grappled with one of the thugs. A primal struggle that sent both crashing against the wall. Chris stayed low, urgent whispers spilling from his lips, urging everyone to move. "We can't stay here. We need a plan." In the frenzy, Henry's heart raced. Every instinct screamed for him to fight back, but the gnawing sense of betrayal wrapped around him, making it hard to breathe. Were any of them truly on his side? Even Jamal, with his fiery spirit, felt like an enigma now. Then the lights flickered again, cutting through the noise. "I told you!" Allison sneered, stepping back as the standoff intensified. "You're out of your league, Henry. This isn't a game you can win." Her words pierced him, raw and chilling, like ice in his veins. As the thugs advanced, a loud bang echoed from the hallway. Reinforcements? Panic clawed at Henry's throat as he fought to think. "We can't give up," he shouted, trying to rally everyone, feeling a surge of defiance. "We can still turn this around." Jamal, hair matted with sweat, shot Henry a fierce look. "It's now or never. We need to fight." He lunged at one of the attackers, adrenaline fueling his every move. In the midst of it all, Mara found her voice, pushing through the chaos. "We stick together. If we want to make it out alive, we can't let fear take over." Everyone turned toward her, the rallying cry igniting a flicker of hope. But before they could even respond, another figure stepped through the door. Malcolm, deathless, eyes wild. "Get down!" he yelled, hand reaching for the weapon strapped to his thigh. He wasn't here to fight. He was here to save them. In that moment, everything shifted. The intruders hesitated, surprise washing over them. "You weren't supposed to be here," one shouted, and confusion spiraled through the ranks of masked men. "Somebody tell Henry who's going down today." Malcolm roared, the bravado pulling everyone's attention away from defeat. Henry's heart raced. Could this be their chance? He didn't know what Malcolm had planned, but it was enough to reboot the energy in the room. The tide felt like it might turn. "On my mark!" Malcolm shouted. The thugs looked at one another, uncertainty etched on their masked faces. Jamal sprang into action again, driving his fist into one of the men's jaws. "Now!" Malcolm yelled, and suddenly chaos erupted as they surged together. It was a whirlwind. Everything became a blur of motion, adrenaline, and fierce teamwork. Henry's hands trembled as he pushed himself up, adrenaline replacing fear. He caught sight of the tablet. Its glass was cracked, but the data inside was still intact. "Cover me!" he shouted to Chris and Mara as he dove for it. Gunfire erupted near him, but the sound morphed into static as Henry focused. He swiped up the tablet, determination burning bright within him. Everything felt like it was teetering on a page of fate. Their lives, their futures. "Let's go!" Henry shouted, clutching the device tightly. As they rallied together, the masked men faltered, their resolve shaking. Then, Allison unleashed a desperate scream. "You'll regret this!" She flung herself toward the exit, slipping like a shadow into the chaos. "Don't let her get away!" Henry yelled. But as he sprinted after her, She disappeared into the corridor's darkness. But they were alive. They were free. They stood together, a ragtag team forged in fire, panting and breathless as silence descended again. Each heartbeat spoke of survival. Their bonds now stronger, but questions still hung in the air. What would happen next? As they emerged from the penthouse into the stormy night, the rain washed away the remnants of their fight. The city lay sprawling beneath them, vulnerable yet filled with possibility. With every step forward, a sense of unity sparked between them. Henry turned to Jamal, the unlikeliest of allies. "What now?" Jamal shrugged, a touch of a smile creeping on his lips. "We rebuild together. We decide who we want to be." "Together," Mara echoed, and the solemn vow lifted their spirits. As they walked, each step echoing against the city's heartbeat, Henry could feel hope blossoming amidst the uncertainty. They didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in a long time, they felt ready to face whatever came next. And there it was, a glimmer of a new beginning in the air. But then, the screen at the corner flickered back to life. A news anchor's voice breaking into the moment, stating, "Breaking news! A corporate scandal involves the city's most powerful figures." A chill ran through Henry as he realized the fight for his life was far from over. He swallowed hard, looking at his companions, knowing they just had to embrace the chaos that awaited them. You don't want to miss what happens next. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash the like button now to feed them.